Reading from the book of Jeremiah, chapter 32, verse 6 through 15. Jeremiah said, "The word of the Lord came to me. Hanamel, son of your uncle Shallum, is going to come to you and say, 'Buy my field that is Anathoth, for the right of redemption by purchase is yours.' Then my cousin Hanamel came to me in the court of the guard, in accordance with the word of the Lord, and said to me, 'Buy my field that is at Anathoth in the land of Benjamin, for the right of possession and redemption is yours. Buy it for yourself.' Then I knew that this was the word of the Lord, and I bought the field at Anathoth from my cousin Hanamel, and weighed out the money to him, 17 shekels of silver. I signed the deed, sealed it, got witnesses, and weighed the money on scales. Then I took the sealed deed of purchase, containing the terms and conditions, and the open copy, and I gave the deed of purchase to Baruch, son of Neriah, son of Maaseiah, in the presence of my cousin Hanamel, in the presence of the witnesses who signed the deed of purchase, and in the presence of all the Judeans who were sitting in the court of the guard. In their presence I charged Baruch, saying, 'Thus says the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, take these deeds, both this sealed deed of purchase and this open deed, and put them in an earthenware jar, in order that they may last for a long time. For thus says the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, houses and fields and vineyards shall again be bought in this land.'" These are the inspired words for the people of God.
Thanks be to God. Present age who are rich, command them not to be haughty or to set their hopes on the uncertainty of riches, but rather on God, who richly provides us with everything for our enjoyment. They are to do good, to be rich in good works, generous and ready to share, thus storing up for themselves the treasure of a good foundation for the future, so that they may take hold of the life that really is life. Take hold of the life that really is life. What a simple and powerful statement, but what might it mean? What is real life? So here are a few questions for you this morning so you can take a bit of an inventory for yourself, that we might arrive to a place of real life. Where are you most fully alive? And where are you most fully present? Most fully at peace? These questions might raise for us other questions, like, what are our stressors? And what is keeping us up at night? Those stressors that are separating us from those moments of peace. What are you most worried about? What are those things that get in the way of our relationship with God? Those moments where we know peace and what's real. What are our obsessions and preoccupations? What are those things that get us hooked that we can't let go of? I know you know what I'm talking about. Those repeated themes or worries that are hard to let go. What are we thinking about far more than we should be? I've also heard it put, what is renting space in your head? What are the simple distractions that we allow ourselves when the work gets too hard? I think that weeding out some of those answers might help us to realize what really matters, what real life is, the life that we are to hold on to, rather than clinging to resentment or grabbing from the past. that somewhere there is where our heart is, where our heart lives fully and where real life is realized. The writer of 1 Timothy reminds us that a preoccupation or obsession with money is the root of all evil, that we are not to set our hopes on the uncertainty of riches, but rather on God, who richly provides. Interesting, yes? If we prioritize God, God is with us. I think then our expectations change and we are more satisfied. The writer of 1 Timothy talks about contentment, and that is something that I think we seek throughout our days, that we set our hopes on God. We can be at home with God. We can start our day there. Every day, every morning, in the car, on the train, in the shower, in the bed, on the bus. Start our day with God. Center our life in God. The writer reminds us that it's dangerous to pursue wealth, not only for us, but for the damage that we may do to others in our pursuit. Potentially putting our families, our co-workers, our friends in jeopardy. We don't need to lift up examples of Ponzi schemes and the power of greed and how we can take others down with us. But the life that really gives life, multiplies life. It does not take it away. It is radically constructed. It builds, and it is generous with what is real, maybe simple, where our heart lives. I was living in Dallas when my mother was hospitalized for the first time. She had been treated for almost 2 decades with an autoimmune disease, and I suppose that we were supposed to expect decline at some point, but nothing gets us ready, right? So I flew home on the first flight, and I spent that week with Mom, caring for her, preparing her meals as she did for us for 30 and 40 and 50 years. I was 35. Finishing my undergraduate work, still working for the Times, and I am afraid to admit that it was the very first time in my life that I actually knew I was in the right place. It was the first time in my life that I knew I was exactly where I was supposed to be. And whether that's a demonstration for you of the angst that I experienced in my younger years, or the fact that I found a companion to care for later in life. It was the first moment that I realized what it meant to give back life, care, to mother, to care beyond myself for the one who cared for me. I was realizing for myself what life really is about, sharing life and giving life. Some of us know that we're at home more so with certain friends, right? Where great comfort and joy is known in the history that we share with one another, in funny stories that remind us how far we've come, or not. Some of us are at home, most at home, with our pets, with our animals. I can't tell you how many church people I've heard say, I don't really like people very much. I'm an animal person. And we wonder about God's children, right? How we're created and wired differently. But some of us are at home, most at home, with those companions we bring into our home and care for and feed and walk and love And I think it's probably true that our faithful and loyal companions are perhaps the most giving of creatures in our lives, bringing joy, generous and constructive because of their unconditional love that they teach us. They make us better people. They give us hope for the future and a reason to get up in the morning. That's what Jeremiah did in a prophetic, by-the-book real estate transaction. Jeremiah purchased the family field in Jerusalem from a jail cell while the territory was still surrounded by Babylon. People had already been exiled. The city had already been under siege. That field was a sign of promise and hope and sustenance. That field gave hope and promise back to the people. A promise in a small plot of land. A promise of hope to the family of God, that they would build and they would plant and they would procreate. They would give life once again. The blessing of the animals falls in this season of the feast day of St. Francis, who realized his calling beyond the life of luxury. Yes, he was born very privileged. Called beyond that to the streets with the suffering, beggars, the hungry, the outcast, the shunned. St. Francis, who sought peace in the midst of the Crusades when Christians were on a rampage to convert or kill. And we wonder why people have a problem with church or Christians or the faith or organized religion or however it is that they name that. Our gospel is life-giving. And in the face of such suffering, Francis would begin the orders of communal living, committed to God, now known as the Franciscans, right? Where in poverty, in communion with nature and with the animals, real life for Francis was known. God was known. Our gospel gives life. We celebrate through the seasons of birth and baptism, through wilderness and Holy Week, to an ever-present reminder of hope and new life in resurrection. Real life, always room for purpose and beyond, something more than the daily stress, obsessions, and worry. We, as Christian people, live into a life that is very real as we care for others, make ministries that are constructive and life-giving and not stripping away rights to anyone. And so we are at home, where our heart is, in the family of God, surrounded by our people and our pets this day. Take some inventory. Give some life back to yourself, that we might all realize who God has created us to be. Keep it simple. Center yourselves morning by morning and know that we can place our trust in the God who richly provides. Amen.